Well, I've had a thousand part-time jobs, but the main work, I was a civil engineer until I turned 21. And when I turned 21, I became a police officer. And then that's all I did for 30 years. I started in 1966, and I retired in, well, 95, because I had some time left and everything. So
you know, today's a memorial service for Mike, who passed away just a week ago today. And you know, looking back on my relationship and the club's relationship with Mike, I recall meeting him in August of '96 when he first came out here from Chicago, just retired from the police department. And at the time I was not an officer, I'm the president of the club now, but at the time I was asked by the president to contact, since he was a retired officer, to contact his last department to verify his bona fides, basically. And I remember calling the captain out there in Park Forest Police Department, Illinois, identified myself as an FBI agent, because I was at that time, and I said, I'm calling about Mickey Klaus. And there was a long silence, and finally the captain said, Jesus Christ, what's he done now? Do I need to call internal affairs?
South suburban Chicago, in a town called Park Forest. It's right next to Chicago Heights. It's right outside of Chicago.
I was one of the original members in Centurions, and I met him at the Pipers about 4 or 5 years ago. We had some great times together. The sickness took him, and I was in constant contact with him, spoke with him almost weekly. We just spoke with him a couple of days ago. He wasn't afraid of what happened to him, but he was a tremendous person.
I used to come out here, first time I came out here with the Corvette Club. It was in the National Corvette Club. And it was beautiful out here. This was in 1978. And I brought my daughter along too. And she liked it out here. So every time I got a new Corvette, I used to come out here and go in the mountains and stuff. So then my daughter moved out here about 9 years ago, because she loved it out here. And when I retired, I just moved out here to be with her and my granddaughters.
Knew Mickey for several years, and he was a lot of fun. He was always the first one to hug a girl when she walked in the door, and we're going to miss him. He was really a very sensitive person towards the last couple of years, and it was a pleasure to know him. And I just wish his family peace and remember the good times, and I hope that his soul is happy.
Well, I've known Mickey for quite a few years, and I'm not very good at speaking at stuff like this, but he was a good friend. I enjoyed riding with him. He was fun to be around, and I'm really going to miss him. And I guess don't know too much else to say about him, that he was a good guy and had a big heart, and I'm going to miss him.
Well, what can I say about Mike? I've known Mike for probably, 8-10 years, I guess. I met him, from riding Harley Davidsons. Like, I met most of my best friends and good friends I still know today was through the Harley Davidson motorcycle. I met Mike when I started riding. We were, I think we hit it off pretty good, him being an ex-police officer and me being a police officer at the time. He's just a great guy, great friend. He'd do anything for you.
Well, I had my first one when I was 12. It was a 1947 Harley, and that was my dirt bike. We just took the fenders off of this thing, and it had a suicide clutch. And since my grandfather was chief of police, I could drive it, and never have to worry about getting stopped or ticketed or anything like that. So that was my first one. Since then, I had 17 more of them, Harleys. And in between that, I had a couple Triumphs and stuff like that. But I always loved it. And then on the police department, I rode a bike for about 3 years until I hit a tree and busted up my arm. So, but I've always loved motorcycles. My sister, she works for Harley Davidson. Her husband works for Harley Davidson. They both drive bikes. They both have bikes. And so it's just been in the family. My younger sister, though, she's never been on a motorcycle and will never get on one. So which is weird, but. Riding with a group of guys that, you know, they're a lot of fun. They don't take things that seriously when we're out. You know, it's just a lot of laughs. And
we're here on a somber moment. One of our fellow brothers has gone to the good place. One thing I can say is God bless Mike, and God bless all the police officers in the world.
the guys, when they do their jobs, they're almost all police officers, and we have some associate members. But on their job, they take it seriously, but off the job, they relax, and they just love motorcycles and Harleys, and most of them are like me. They get a new one every year or two, and you know, they just, none of them can keep them stock.
Oh, this is hard. I have good memories, and I remember Mike back when my daughter was 19, and he was driving the limo, and he was just infatuated with how beautiful and rambunctious and full of energy, and he wanted to just be sort of a father image and make sure that she and her girlfriends didn't get into trouble. So
I had the pleasure of knowing Mickey as a fellow motorcycle rider and a fellow police officer. I've always known him as Mickey. I've never called him Mike or anything else. We had a great time while we were all members of the Centurions, riding motorcycles, going to Sturgis. It was a great time. I enjoyed the few years that we had together. Wish he'd had a little bit more time spending with us instead of Chicago. Maybe we'd have gotten to know him even a little better. So we wish him well, Godspeed in his travels, and one day we'll all be riding together.
But the Centurions is just a great group of guys, you know, and we got a lot of camaraderie in the club. And like our associate members, we have a percentage that, you know, they're not police officers, but they're firemen, and they're in different businesses, and they're just a good group of guys too, or we wouldn't let them in the club.
Just want to take a second, Mickey, Tanner, and Sydney, to tell you how much your dad meant to me. He was a very good friend. I've known him for years. He was always there when I needed a friend and someone to talk to. I'm going to miss him a lot. A lot of laughs, a lot of good times, a lot of adventures. We've talked, and I know that you know how I felt about your dad.
Mickey was one of my best friends, and I loved him very dearly, and one of my most treasured thoughts are many rides we took together, and how he was always there for me as a friend when I needed him, and had a great sense of humor, and how strong he was, and hung in there till the end, and how much he loved his family and his Centurion buddies and riding his hog.
What can I say about Mickey? He's one of the good guys. Never rode with him a whole lot, but the times that we did ride, he was always just pleasant, loved to ride hard, loved to live life to the fullest, and he loved his family. He just loved his grandkids, loved his daughter, and loved it being here in Colorado.
Good friend of Mickey's, I'd like to think. He was a very, very wonderful person. We're going to miss him very, very much. He's so lovable and just had a heart of gold. God bless him, and God bless his family.
Mickey, I know you can hear me, bud, and I'll always remember you as one of the first ones that came up and talked to me when I started riding with the club. I'll never forget you, man. You're just, you're part of us now. You're with us all the time.
Well, about 5 years ago, I got cancer. And since then, I've had like 14 operations. And I've done chemo 5 times. And I'm getting ready Friday to start it again. But this time, I'm not doing the infusion. They got pills now, so I'm going to be taking the pills. And these pills don't work. I'm going to be in this regimen with an experimental thing where the pill, you remember that pill that they took, that the FDA said they wanted more studies on? It goes right to the cancer. Well, I'll be taking that. And so, you know, I don't want to give it up. I want to last as long as I can. But, you know, it's been a rough 5 years for my daughter. And
Mike and I both got voted into the Centurions at the same time back in 1986. I just met him and we'd both been hanging around. I knew a lot of the guys in the club already because I'm a Denver cop. Most of the club was Denver cops at the time. And, you know, he's always struck me as being a real hardcore guy, and I mean that in a good way. I'm one of the guys that rides year round. You know, rain, snow, as long as it's not slick, I'm out riding. Talking to Mike sometimes, you know, he and I would be some of the few guys that would actually be out riding during riding season. I'd give him a call or run into him somewhere and say, hey, you know, Mike, where you been? I missed you this weekend. He said, oh, I ran out to Chicago to see my friends out there. I said, well, how'd you get there? He said, well, I took my scooter. Well, I just saw you, you know, Thursday. He says, yeah, I know, I left Friday morning. It's Sunday. You know, 1,000 miles each way in 2 or 3 days, and it was nothing to him. And you know, people think I'm nuts about riding like that, but.
One of the operations was on my tailbone. And so I haven't been on a bike for about 3 years now. In fact, I had to sell my last one to one of the other guys in the club. But I said to heck with it now. I just take some pain pills and I'm going to start riding again. You know, I'm not going to give that up.
So we're leaving our combination with one of you guys, and if we happen to pass away...
I'm gonna pick on your nose, man. There must be a Pueblo thing.
But I have to do a cheese. Buffalo burger, no cheese. Onion rings or fries. Buffalo burger, no cheese.
I just ordered buffalo burger.
Just crazy. I used to, one day in July, I got up in the morning, it was a nice day, so I just packed some clothes and drove back to Chicago, and, you know, straight through, and I stayed there for a day and then drove back here again. You know, that's how I used to ride. I put on 50, 60,000 miles a year. Here's what I want, and I told one of the guys, and he's going to make sure it happens, is that I'm going to be cremated, and the guys are going to go up with the motorcycles and take my ashes up on Red Rocks and spread them out there, and then, you know, party afterwards. That's all. That's about it. You know, I hate to see anybody sad. You know, what makes me sad is the thought of seeing like my daughter, and that's sad. You know, so. But that's what I got planned for when I die. It's not going to be like a. Well, like one of our other guys died, and we had a big procession of motorcycles and that, and then we had a party afterwards, and that's basically what I want. You know, not to make it a real sad event, it just happens, and that's the way it is. You know, I mean, when we ride and there's 50 guys, it's just cool. I mean, you know, and the people watch you go down the street, you know, and you're just unique, is what it is. And I think the women think that it's a macho thing and all that, and it's really not the macho thing. It's like you said, it's a camaraderie, and it's it's just, it's a cool feeling. I don't know how to describe it, but when you're in a group and you see 50 motorcycles in front of you, it's just kind of hard to describe. I mean, it really is.
How are you?
Here's what I want, and I told one of the guys, and he's going to make sure it happens, is that I'm going to be cremated, and the guys are going to go up with the motorcycles and take my ashes up on Red Rocks and spread them out there, and then, you know, party afterwards. That's
We come rolling down the road.
Love to take my bike up the Old Coast Road. The night is blue, the sunset gold.
More space. You know what? If it comes to the point where I need to stay somewhere on the floor, or just work fine.
Plenty of room for